Okay, wow. Office Hours 24. This is a special version, cottage vacation and outdoor lawn version. So thank you for joining me. I thought it was going to be a solo episode. I was ready to rant, and no one was going to watch this, but I was going to air out my frustrations and everything that was going on. But I appreciate that there's people here. We're missing one wonderful person named 𝗲𝗁 𝗨𝗽. He is exploring BC. I have not heard anything from him, so I hope he's okay. That means he's actually enjoying his time, and that's a wonderful thing. So we'll quickly do we're trying to calculate this. The number, this is Office Hours 24. Beautiful. Guys, thanks so much for joining. I'm in a different location. This is not a green screen background. My mom and her partner got a cottage. They call it a camp up here. Actually, it's derogatory if you call it a cottage. And it's first time up here. So very excited to spend some time with family, and it's been a good couple days already. So get out of here, there's bugs. That's one thing to think.
Why is cottage derogatory?
So apparently when you get this far up north, so we're sort of near like Sudbury area, like everyone refers it to as a camp. No one wants it to be called a cottage. Cottage is
that brings the tourists.
Exactly. Cottage is for the lower Muskoka, wealthy elites, and this is for the true hunters, the campers. Yeah, so that's it. Anyways, okay. Quick introduction, Tyler. Up at a cottage. This is Vacation Tyler, but still Tyler. Happy to be here. Really just thinking about work from a different location. And that was some of my topics that I had sort of talking about today if I was going to do a solo episode, but I think we've got some more exciting stuff besides that. So maybe just a quick round of introduction, and then we'll jump into some topics here.
Okay.
Classic.
We got to start raising our hands again. Nicole Digital Strategist here to speak. Thinking of all the ways we can talk about speak, how we can sell speak, how we can get people using speak.
Okay, beautiful. Is this just for me, or did Nihal get a little quiet at the end there?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, you're good now. You're back. I think you just got it. We heard you. Just didn't. Okay, Lauren, go ahead, sir.
Sure. I'm Lauren. I am the accountant and finance guy, doing a lot of business stuff, making sure everything is staying afloat here. And yeah, just enjoying the weather. It's got a lot of rain apparently, but kind of jump out here for little pockets of sun.
Got the birds in the back, so thank you for the ambience. Tim.
That's wonderful. So I'm a product developer here, and while 𝗲𝗁 is away, I've got everything in my hands, which is scary, and with power comes great responsibility. It's going to be a good office hours. Everyone is prepping for weekends, and it seems like we're really enjoying the summer, all of us here. Would love to hear what you have to say, Tyler, about the topic of this decentralized workforce. Or no, this is not, how would you frame that? But yeah.
So basically, are you talking about the idea of just working remotely, basically working from anywhere? Yeah. Okay, I guess we can start with that. That's a good topic. Just this, I mean, for myself, there's the joy of this, which is, my mom, she got this place and she works remotely. So I was introduced to remote work from a very young age. My mom, probably, I would say almost 2001, had got her first job working for an American company and worked remote in her entire life. And that was something that I don't think most people got the opportunity to grow up with a parent who worked in that way. So I always sort of showed me that was possible. And then another big catalyst for me, which catalyst I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, was the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, which was like, wow, you can make a living and a good living at that, working from anywhere in the world. And actually, ideally, you work from anywhere in the world. That's actually one of the blessings that's possible here. So that's always been a dream of mine. I never knew if it would be in a company format or if I was just going to be sort of this digital nomad who took on contracts and tried to figure it out that way. But I'm grateful to have the opportunity to do it. Also a team that I just have, I think what it comes down to is trust, that, that everyone is doing their best and cares about what you're doing. And if you have that through a team structure, then it doesn't really matter where you work or when you work. It just matters that you all care about what you're doing and they're doing a good job. anything?
No, it is a marvelous thing, and maybe the most surprising thing was to get this opportunity when I got into 𝗕ecie AI. We were in the DMZ office downtown Toronto. It was fun. It was a lot of engagement and just social activities going on all the time. And this switch with COVID was a little painful in the beginning, because it was right at the right before the winter, when people realized how bad it is actually to be alone. And in that winter, from then on, it's the perspective over life really changed for many people. For myself personally too. It's like, well, you now have all the time for yourself. You now don't have to conform to essentially the social activities themselves, for example, that really do take time. And it's interesting to see how people got better. Just friends and family and everyone around you. People are calmer. I'm seeing that some of us just have less stress, and it's just so good to have less stressed people around you, and just surrounding you. Such a more, calm environment.
It's different though. Like Lauren and I, we work together. I'm trying to think how long, Lauren, at least a year in person, almost every day. And, I really do miss that. I miss the energy of being together in person. It makes a big difference. I don't know, Lauren, if anything you have to say. I saw you unmute. I miss just coming into Innovation Works and obviously seeing you and that's on everyone, but just also just anyone in that office space that we shared.
Yeah, especially Innovation Works. It was really awesome working there. Just even when you're on your lunch break, you just go and wander around the building. And there's so many nice, helpful people around there. So I was really excited about DMZ too. I was only there for like 1 or 2 trips, I think, but so many nice people. It's kind of like the same energy you get when you go to like the gym. Like you can work out at home, but I feel like if you're not really working out at the gym, like around other people, working out, improving themselves, is kind of not as helpful. You kind of need to have the beehive buzzing in order for you to really get into a good work state.
Yeah, and I mean the innovation was one big part of that, and had these amazing, like I would say, was like this lifeblood of like energy and empathy and compassion and care for the world and sustainability. And then there was the DMZ, which was like high pace startups accelerating quickly, learning quickly, sharing what they're doing. And it was interesting because, one of the topics I was sort of going to bring up a bit today was some of these conversations with investors and some of the stuff that they had asked. But one of them over and over again is this idea of like, what is your go-to-market plan? And I realized, like, when I first came to Toronto to the DMZ, I didn't really have one, besides the fact that I was going to go into the DMZ and I was going to go to every networking event I possibly could. And because that's just how I had made everything, like that's how I had gotten through everything in life already. It's just like show up, bring yourself, bring your energy, be curious, ask questions, and just thrive and be in the same space as amazing, intelligent people. And life just seems to like project you forward. And so that part I do have this sort of longing for and miss. And I hope that that's why I'm still I'm not in Toronto right now, but I have this hope for Toronto, is that I still think, although people love this remote structure, and I do agree with the peacefulness, like I had my first post-pandemic in-person business meeting the other day. And I had to drive like 25 minutes and I had to park, and then I couldn't find the office building entrance. I was like, this is bullshit. Why? I never want to do this again. But then got into the room and there's 2 people there who are awesome people. And we got to actually sit and look at each other, and we were in the office, and it was like an amazing conversation. And, I just felt by getting together in person, that creates momentum and connection. And so I do hope there's this balance of inconvenience and things that takes off your focus and takes off, it's unnecessary, versus the in-person connection that's possible and can create so much momentum for you and in your relationships.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some level of balance, I find. Maybe it's not going to be like the regular Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing, but I think a lot of people are doing like 1, 2, 3 days in the office out of the week. I think that's good to have, you know, some of this and some of that. There is quite a lot of benefits to it from home. It's a lot cheaper. You can like go take a shower in the 𝗕𝗲𝗁𝗀𝗃, I guess. You know, just make food a lot easier at home, I suppose. But yeah, there's definitely something missing out by not working with people, around people.
It's just interesting too. I'll just add one maybe part from my last thing from my perspective on this topic, which was like Google and some of these bigger companies who are obviously, you know, very successful, but then also have the tools to measure sort of employee engagement and culture and performance and productivity. They started with this idea that they were going to be fully remote. And as the pandemic has sort of, you know, come towards an end, they have, some of them have said, no, we want, you know, at least they've shifted back to this idea of like a hybrid model. Now there's some outliers, like there are companies and even Facebook, you know, Zuckerberg said he's going to be away from the office for 6 months a year, and he's letting his employees who are full-time, who have been there, do the same thing. But a lot of companies probably saw some indicators or signals, or at least that they weren't able to create the same culture through remote work. And it seems very hard. And some of the events that I've been that are sort of like trying to create culture, even within some of the companies that we work with, not even us, because sort of our culture is through our conversations, and then I would say even office hours, but like it sort of felt like people were like half there, were there only because they had to be. So I also felt today, like I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'm going to be doing this alone, and it's because office hours aren't as fun as they seem. But I'm glad that you guys are here. That's nice. It made me feel special that I saw 3 people log in today. So thank you again for that. And I think just in general, we do thrive as people together and as a collective. And a lot of these companies have put a lot of investment into their spaces and their office, and the science behind that of how can you build these connections that build great things. And I think that is still a hard thing to replace fully digital. And that's why even we look at our quarterly sort of get-togethers and plannings as something we want to do in person. Okay. Any last thoughts, 𝗲𝗏? Any thoughts on this?
I mean, I guess just for us, like, you know, if things go back to normal, it would be interesting to see what, you know, the potential hybrid model looks like for us as well, and you know, whether we kind of switch to that or just kind of stick to the full remote. You know, maybe have like co-working sessions. Like, I think that would be interesting. It would be good to get some easier energy to feed off of, right? Like feed off each other. And I feel like it'll probably be a lot easier to make certain bigger decisions when it's not maybe like a message thread or,
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
Even just that office I went to for that meeting, it was like a very agency like tall ceiling, and it was like, oh, I just want to work here, you know. And so I hope to have one day an office that looks like that, but that's probably not coming anytime soon, so I apologize. 𝗲𝗏, you had a couple topics here today. Is there anyone that sticks out that you really want to go through on this call?
Maybe we can go with the third one. So how can non-technical team members best contribute to product development? And this was just something I've been thinking about, you know, reading different founder stories, different startup stories, when they're a small team, and where exactly how things might be segmented within the organization, and where does, you know, decision making and responsibility fall for certain things. And I guess I was just wondering, in our case, you know, we do have certain feedback loops and you know, feature requests that we can put in to try help shape the product. But you know, on our team we have 2 technical people, and then the rest of us are, you know, for the most part non-technical. So it's like, where do we see our role within that product development cycle? And maybe even, you know, if Tim has a viewpoint on this, where engineering sees the fit of, you know, marketing or, you know, just general sales and admin side, how does that fit into the whole product ecosystem? Because for me, it also just kind of fed off this idea when I was looking at, our website or branding and how we try to make everything cohesive. And basically, how do we make, the Speak product more than just the app? It's how we speak to people. It's how we communicate through our emails, how we communicate when we're actually helping customers with any issues they might have. And yeah, just thoughts about how non-technical people fit into actually making decisions that would help the product grow. Because even if it's not, I feel like the limiting factor for non-technical people is just not understanding where maybe the technical limitations are in requesting a feature or in requesting a change to the app. And yeah, I guess just thoughts on like where we as non-technical individuals, team members, fit within the product development cycle, and how we can make it easier to communicate our ideas to the engineering team.
Tim, as the sole engineering team member on this call, do you have a response before Lauren and non-technical members jump into this topic?
It's a valid issue. Seeing small organizations, but it doesn't have to be small. Any agile organization is having to deal with this, is having to product managers and have to communicate with all stakeholders, and everybody does have a stake in product. Marketing does, salespeople do, UX researchers do, sometimes even accounting, it does. We have to be in tune with all the right metrics with business, and this equilibrium is actually quite hard to get to, because you can imagine that there could be that a product manager could just walk around and gather requirements. What would you like? What would you want? What would you want to see in the app? And this becomes, it's just a factory. It's not strategic. And this is where the word strategy comes in, is where it is important to set the priority and the value and ask the right questions to every each party, technical or not. Because product is not, it's built by engineers, indeed. It's designed by designers, but it's formed and molded into something that's supposed to uphold a product value exchange with end customers. And everyone on the team has a necessary influence on this, because obviously everyone has their own personal, professional perspectives as well. But that true collaboration is, as Tyler, you just mentioned, really about melding brains, having that connection, having this ideas pop up in the air. And ideas are, solutions are one thing, of course. Everyone has solutions, and it's normal because that's how our brains work. But when you do think a little laterally from those solutions, it's interesting to have the shared perspective, but also shared learning from exchanging these perspectives to each other on the meetings and one-on-ones. And these moments produce this shared learning. And doesn't matter whether you're technical or not, it's important that you speak up in your organization and here at 𝗕ecie AI too. And I hope we do. And as I'm seeing, Michal, you're utmost helpful. And Lauren, great questions too. All of this really creates this shared understanding of the product, if that answers the question.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, Papa Lauren's questions are usually, why are we doing this? Which are always great qualifiers of anything. And I think there's a couple things that stick out for me here, which is, Michal talks about, this idea of like sort of being non-technical, but I mean, Michal, you're a talented technical marketer from even like an SEO perspective, or how you can filter through data to reveal insights that are actually really valuable for product development and understanding what we should be prioritizing. And that's something that, I mean, I'm sure Tim and 𝗏𝗲𝗁 could figure out, but it's not their specialty. And, so there's a huge value add to anyone who can play a role in that and then bring that knowledge or sort of take all that data and actually present something useful out of it. And I would say even some of the work that you've done, which we talked about in the last call, which is like build something like the alternatives page and then start to source queries about what's not working for our competitors or alternatives, helps us then figure out where we can differentiate. And that the part is interesting. Like I built a lot of websites before I started this, and then I've also gotten, now that I'm working on Speak long enough, and then working with 𝗏𝗏𝗁 long enough, it's like you start to realize when your queries or what you're saying is a lot bigger ask than you think, or like not, you know what I mean? Like at the start, you would have this sort of technical gap that makes everything just like, oh, let's do this. And you don't think about the architecture of the system, or that's, like there's so many things that are not thought about when you're a non-technical or when you're not a developer. And it's there's no question, there's no, it's amazing that really like developers today are these, magicians of the world that have so much value that you just, I felt even these last couple of days, I mean, Tim has stepped up and played an enormous role, but it's like felt almost useless sometimes with queries coming from some of our customers. It's like, I can do nothing. You know what I mean? I'm just here. I feel like I have no arms or something. I don't even know, and so I like the way that 𝗏𝗏𝗁 approaches it, which is this idea of like, let's take our 5 ideas and throw them and we'll put them into our list of what we want to build, and we'll filter through and we'll agree on those. Now, what's interesting is I think that in the end, 𝗏𝗏𝗁 and Timothy have the most say in some regards, which is if they don't want to build it, then it's not going to get built, and then there's the other thing to consider, which is there's the original vision that you have for what you want to build. So also, if we're filtering things in that are coming from customers, do we choose to build those because our customers are saying them? Do we choose to build them because they fit into our original vision? Or do we actually not build them because they don't fit that vision or what we want our product to be? And I think that's something that we keep bumping up into, which is like, the other day I had a conversation with a lawyer and he's like, can it do this and this and that? And if so, it can do X, Y, blah. And it's like, all of those things could happen, but do you choose to do that? Or do you, is that really the market that we want to work? Is that really the ideal customer? And even as I've gotten deeper into conversations with some of these investors, I think that's been the question, because they look at it through the lens of like, of course you have limitations of cash flow today, but if you were to take on investment and really you were hit milestones, you would never run out of capital. So it's actually up to you to choose what you want your customers to be and what you truly want to do. And so it's even depending on where you are in the world, what level of your career you're in, what company stage you're in, it changes how you even approach product development, the communication that happens, and then you validate and decide what you want to build or what you don't want to build. And I think just one last part, Neil, is like for us, what we get to do better or more of is talk to customers or communicate to customers or get marketing data that helps us understand what to prioritize. But then I think our role is not just, okay, is this great that someone's asked for this, but are they willing to pay for it? Like that's what Leon really was a big sort of driver of, which was like, okay, great that there's someone who likes it. But if you were to then build it for them and 2 months later and say, hey, I built this for you. Are you excited, ready? It's going to be $99 a month and they say, oh, no, then we just spent 2 months building something that was not validated at all. So it's like the willingness to pay is our responsibility and a requirement from us before we go back to the technical members of the team and say, hey, let's build this.
Yeah, and it depends on like how big of a problem it is too, like how often they have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So if it's really just every so often, they'll have a need for it. And that kind of gears towards what you should be focusing on. As far as like Mihal's questions goes, I think we've kind of answered already. It's mostly just a matter of having proper communication between customers and developers, making sure that everybody's clear and understanding of each other. One thing I've always found that I was like the most helpful for the technical side was just doing bug reporting, bug testing, actually like figuring out if there's any like mistakes there. So that's where it's really good to have a good attention to detail and just like a vision of like what you expect to happen. And then if it doesn't meet those expectations, then you can kind of talk about it. But there's a lot of things that you could like bring up of like how it could be better. I think that Bounce has been mostly focused on like what's broken, like what is not working and should be working. But there's also there's plenty of room for improvement, I think. But it's just a matter of, improvement for who. Like it's like my own opinion of how you can improve it, but I guess you kind of have to listen to the customers, people who use it the most often, really, because I'll pump in every time there's like an update and check to see everything's still holding steady. But and it's kind of more, you gotta have to listen more to the customers too, because it's more like I'm just using it to test it. I don't really need a lot of transcript and accounting. So yeah, it's just a matter of having good communication with everybody. That's about it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'll just add one thing that stuck out to me this week was like I shared that video of like sort of the animate your speech concept. And I had like multiple people say, hey, this is awesome. Like, can I try it? I'm like, no, first of all, it's not even close to being something that's in production. But it's like, if you truly want to see this come to life, would you help us by giving us $15.99 a month to validate that this is something you really want to come to life? And if not, then I guess it's not that cool. You know what I mean? Or again, maybe it's cool, but it doesn't solve any problems for you in your life. And that's been something, a big shift of life, even for me as a company owner who, started out young in his career and just wanted to build things that are cool, and then also gets further along and wants to invest and wants to hire a better team, wants to take care of the people on the team, and those your priorities change in life, and with that also your understanding of like how you want to build a company or what you need to build a company around changes. Sometimes it's not always the coolest thing is the answer. It's that we solved a real problem for you, and that problem has immense value for you, and so you're willing to exchange, money for that to make that happen. And I think there was even for me, I think about this sometimes with the investor conversations that are happening too, but like a sort of skepticism of that, or like this value exchange of money. But people who seem like pure capitalists or true capitalists in like an honorable way talk about like, if people are willing to pay you for something, then you've actually created true value. And I think if you can get your frame around, that perspective, then it's a very helpful one, whether you're building a company or if you're trying to talk to investors too. So Mihal, did we answer your question? Do you feel anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think there were quite a few good things talked about there, because it kind of feeds into, one of the other points I had was just, when does, I guess, like, I mean, this might be something we need to have that here to discuss properly, but essentially, when does the shift from building your core, like just the guts of your product, when does that end? And when does improving outputs or just quality of life changes? When does the focus shift to something like that? Right. And obviously you never stop working on what makes your system, but at what point do we shift the focus from, keep improving this core product without actually addressing larger or even pain points that don't exist yet for customers. And yeah, you know, like listening to customers is obviously the number one way we figure that out. Like if it's a large enough pain point where people are willing to pay us, or at least invest that time to like exchange, you know, a conversation, book a demo, whatever it is. That's validation in a way. But then, yeah, once again, don't know the technical limitations just yet, but it would be good to understand at some point when, you know, building a, you know, for instance, building a better user experience takes priority over building a new feature, let's say. And I'm not quite sure when that flip or when that addition, right? Like we plug it into the main engine. When does that happen?
Very interesting question, but I would also argue that you asked too. The last one, when are we going to prioritize feature over a piece of UX, is one question. The other is the very first one. Are we building the core product, or are we iterating on something that exists? Well, it's the very same thing. I would argue that. I'd argue that you're always trying to build core product, because that's what's so like that's. There's nothing to choose from. You're either building the right thing or the wrong thing, but you do not know. Subjectively, it's the right thing. So, but the second question is it's not as technical, wouldn't it be? Tyler, from the business viability perspective, that would be more valid answer, perhaps, to when do we prioritize a feature, and when do we prioritize to iterate on something that does exist?
Yeah, I think you know, to me, there's always this idea of like we've talked about it a lot lately, which is like acquisition, activation, and then retention, right? And you know, say there's like, when I look at, okay, maybe we don't build any more onto the core functionality of the system, but you build something like, and again, a little too late, but like a Zoom marketplace integration, which then allows people to sync our system with Zoom and opens up a whole new customer channel. But then it starts to, okay, great. Now we've opened up a whole new customer acquisition channel, but the user experience is poor. So we're just churning out users, and it's actually unprofitable at that point, or it's creating such a bad reputation of our company that, you know, okay, let's stop building another integration or another addition, and we really need to focus on like what are causing the problems here right now that are making all these customers who are signing up with hope and optimism just to leave immediately because the user experience isn't good enough, or the transcript isn't good enough, or the insights are useless, or, you know, whatever that piece is. And I think our team is good at realizing in the moment. I don't think we're maybe as good at predicting yet, but I also don't think in the stage that we're at, it's very easy to predict these, you know, these kind of things. It's not really like, and just for an example, like that's when I talk about it all the time. Like in a different world, we would have prioritized as soon as Zoom came out and the pandemic started, we probably should have built a Zoom integration. And then we could have had a whole pipeline built off that would have changed our whole product and figured out that user experience in a different way. So like, I think, you know, Nihal, one thing that you've talked about is just like, how can we build little widgets on our site that help with the acquisition part? So there's that piece, but then again, once we get them to use that widget, are they going to retain in the product, or are they going to become a customer for us? So it's depending on the performance of our own engine, our own application, our own marketing channels, that we figure out what place we need to prioritize in that moment. And if ideally we'd have a team capacity to do all at once, but we don't. So those are hard decisions that you're making, and you're always sacrificing one over the other in some ways.
Because to that point, I think there is value, obviously, in the acquisition and conversion front, where, you know, that's a large part of my job, for instance. But then when it comes to, but I think especially nowadays when it comes to being a communicator or a marketer, or just part of a growth team within any product, even issues related to retention should fall onto your plate and should be things you care about. Right? It's not like my job ends at, oh, well, I got someone to sign up for the app. See ya. Right? Like part of my role now it should also be to help the technical team figure out where they can actually, how to hold on to these customers and what does that look like. And like you said, and I mean, it kind of feeds into another point, right? How do we build a good user experience, a good front end experience, while also continuing development of the core tech with the limited team, right? And like you said, there's sacrifices and prioritization that needs to be done. And I guess just it'll be interesting to see, if we have the capacity to add some human power to these facets of our product that aren't getting as much love as they maybe need at this moment in time. It'll be interesting to see how that supercharges a lot of our efforts at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a lot of customer success that comes in after you've made the sale, and we kind of do that already with all of our more larger enterprise sales anyways, where we're actually communicating and working with them. I think just a matter of being successful with customer success is knowing the problem, before you even sell to them, and then once you sold to them, you're checking in to see how is that problem going? Have you solved it? Are you not using the product properly? And what can I do to help to either educate you or develop the product into what it needs to be to meet that problem you have.
This is maybe an entrance into a more specific question as to, you have these KPIs, an objective way to measure the success of a particular, of anything that you've spent time on, really. And then you have other priorities in the world. And it's as to, there is one way of building a product essentially by setting these success metrics, achieving them or not, learning from it. That's sort of the build fast and learn, but set priorities, build fast and learn, the 3-step process. Yeah, and it does nicely circle back into, well, what is the key, what is the measure of success? We do have North Star metric, like X uploads of media, and we have other metrics too from different departments even. But should priority lie in there? I can promise you to, the hypothesis is that this particular idea, such as marketing campaign, can produce 10% more acquisitions next month, or let's say 20, and piece of a feature in the product can well, you can prioritize one over another in this case, but sometimes it happens that one hypothesis, there are a couple of hypotheses in the product, for example, or there are 2 hypotheses in marketing, and do you prioritize over what would be the output if it does succeed? Sort of this question is better answered with ICE scores. It's better answered with the frameworks of impact, and I would say, okay, from here it's evident that OKRs were utmost useful in figuring out what are the most impactful things, and therefore they are to be prioritized. But it's also evident that you can't plan everything ahead. We, on the product side, had 10 launches this quarter outside of anything that we planned. And it's it does say to the emergency, to the emergent quality of some of the hypotheses that you must test, like the Zoom integration. Could we, what could we do better this quarter? Would be my question.
You asking? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple of things that have stuck out to me. Hey, Kobe. Is first of all, I love you guys. You know, that's why I, you know, hard even on vacation to leave work, because I just, these conversations I enjoy so much. I learn so much. It's really, I look forward to these every Friday. Like one of the things that stuck out to me, because I've, you know, been, it's weird, right? You're talking to customers on a daily basis, but now, you know, I've spent a lot more time talking to investors. And one thing that stuck out to me, and I sent that email to, I think not an email, but the questions that were asked, which were like, I put up some traction points and they were great. And I was like, you know, MRR, here's your monthly. And she's like, okay, but what about your annual recurring revenue? I didn't care about MRR at all. What about, great about X, but what about your customer acquisition cost? Or, you know, if your ARR is not high enough, okay, well then let's look at usage patterns or usage time in the app, weekly active users or daily active users. I've realized all these different patterns or approaches that investors are taking up looking at early stage companies to figure out if there are positive signals there or not. It's really, really interesting. And even one that stuck out to me the other day, Nihal said, what was on Drift, is like, what is our customer response time on a live chat? You know, and that doesn't seem like, you know, maybe a huge one right now, but it's like, that matters, you know, especially when you have important people sign up on the app and you don't respond to them for 2 hours. They could be gone forever, or, you know, they're reporting back to a decision maker who they now have given a bad word to, and that decision is no longer made. So like, it's just, I've learned a lot from these conversations, I think in a very positive manner. One thing I would like to think about is we've talked about this idea of North Star being like the amount of media uploads, and it seems within the next few months, some of the work that we've done to prioritize that is now starting to kick in, where we have like one it looks like it's going to go to, which is like almost 4,000 hours, and another one where there's, you know, at least 200 hours per month. So those metrics are being accomplished. The one that is sticking out to me that people keep asking about is the annual recurring revenue, which is like, it makes so much sense in an early stage, which is, what is the biggest problem for most businesses is cash flow. And if you can build something that's valuable enough that people sign up for a year and they pay in advance, then you have the cash to then invest in them and you can prioritize them too. So we've had several annual contracts be generated in the last couple of weeks. Some are odd, to be honest, but that's great. We can figure that out. And then some are not odd, but I just, you know, as we look into the next quarter, I'm wondering, I don't know exactly, it's still raw in my mind. It's just that that question has emerged so many times and it makes so much sense from a business perspective that, you know, maybe that is something we should look at prioritizing and wrapping some of our OKRs or how we're looking at things over the next 3 months. I just had one last quickly thing. Like there's a company called Pipe down in the US right now, which is like, honestly, it's like revolutionizing startups, because if you get monthly recurring revenue, you can go to Pipe and they will pay your monthly recurring revenue for up to a year. Like people will bid basically, so you're getting your cash, you're getting your MRR funded up front. For obviously there's a cost to it, but it's like not that bad, and they're sort of changing the way like venture capital done, or it's like capital in early startups is done. So like, but Pipe is not available in Canada right now. So MRR would be an amazing thing if you could fund cash flows through something like that. But in our case, how could we adjust this to making something so compelling from an annual plan that people sign up for that over the monthly recurring, and then we can invest with them in a product, knowing that they're going to be there for the next year. That's something really exciting, I thought, to think about.
Yeah, I actually hate that Pipe thing. That doesn't make any sense. It's just some sort of made up, you know, financial instrument. And it's fairly new too. And whenever I see like some sort of, you know, hackneyed pulled together financial instrument, and you get people signing contracts, I'm just having nightmares of 2008 and all that financial crunch and all the CDOs and all that stuff. So I don't know. I don't. A lot of vipers. A lot of lot of vipers just making up whatever thing and then making people sign away. They have no clue what they're signing away to, because it's just like there's no history behind it too. Like you don't know what's gonna really be the outcome of this. You don't know if it's really gonna work out. But yeah, if you ever want to sell your soul, just make up random contracts. I'm sure someone will buy it.
You know what, Ron, I like hearing the hot take from you. I have not researched it well enough. I just know that it's being, very well adopted, and it has some big investments. Doesn't mean that's like as you're saying, doesn't mean that that's a good thing. But it's interesting of them talking about, we're looking at sort of different kinds of asset classes, like obviously like people talking about digital currency and cryptocurrency, but they're saying like monthly recurring revenue is one of the most valuable assets that you can have, and people are willing to buy into that. So anyways, I'm not smart enough to talk about that stuff, but it's interesting to hear your perspective on it as someone who looks more into that. I guess just to help me think through this, and as we are starting to look into prioritization, like one thing that I've just noticed, like one of the people who is signing up for the annual recurring plan is like, they wanted the minutes up front, which was interesting, because in the monthly recurring, you are obviously only getting like the 600 per month or whatever. They wanted all the minutes up front. So that was one of the triggers that made them want to sign up. They know that we're investing more into things like redaction, or like there's things that we can help with their workflow that's going to make it more valuable. But I'm just wondering, even from a marketing or messaging perspective, or if it's a percentage, like you don't want to go too deep on a percentage discount on an annual plan, or wherever you figure this out. But just something that's really sticking out to me, and it would give us all a lot more confidence or like unnervousness if we had a bunch of people signing up for a year and then knowing that we're going to invest that time with them. So maybe we'd just love to double tap on that for a sec here, if you guys have any perspective, and then we can wrap up the call unless anyone else has anything burning before we close out.
Yeah, it depends on like which problems are most all encompassing, or like more found between different customers, I guess, there. Because sure, like they pay for the annual fee, but
Did you lose Lauren? It's just me. Lost Lauren. Oh, it looks like he was about to go into something beautiful too. I thought it was me for a second. I hope he comes back. I feel like at any second he's going to come back talking still, or just sitting in silence. He's got a good screenshot of him here, though. He looks handsome, so that helps. Okay, well, I don't know I guess Nihal, do you any thoughts on the ARR part as someone who's responsible for marketing and messaging? Hey, Lauren, you're back. I'm sorry, we lost you.
Sorry.
We lost you for a minute, buddy. You looked like you were going into something important.
Okay, where did I cut off at?
All encompassing.
Oh, okay. I was like the very beginning.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of looking at which problems that are one that we're able to do with our skill set, that we're willing to do, that we enjoy ourselves, and whether or not that's top priority for multiple people that are willing to pay, especially when it comes to like annual too, because they're kind of in it for the long haul, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. It's not fun to have a customer. I mean, not that you don't like your customers, but from an agency perspective, I have had difficult relationships in the past. And if you've now just signed up for a year relationship, building things that are actually taking you in a contradictory path of where you would ideally like to end up can be a difficult thing. So there are some considerations of like what happens in that moment where it's like, I want to sign up for an annual license or even a monthly recurring license, but like they're not your ideal customer. Like this is still something I struggle with. It's like if you see our system as valuable already, and then with some small adjustments, or even if it's valuable enough already, but you don't fit this little percentage of, or this little sort of customer persona that we've, drawn out on a nice piece of paper. Do you say no? Do you say, okay, go ahead, but this product isn't made specifically for you? Do we risk things by doing that? And then again, I guess the same idea from a monthly perspective, or then also from that year perspective, where someone signs up for a year and it's like our product isn't going in a direction that you believe it is. I guess just some things to consider. Neil, any thoughts? We looked a little bit at AppSumo about the deals that they're doing. Like, not that we know that that's the path that we want to go down to, because there is definitely some things to think about in that regard. But you look at, the why people will, from a relatively, because the other thing is being in a relatively, for example, like we're definitely not a Amazon or like a well-tested, well-battled brand that people know. So there's a risk that people are taking when they sign up for a monthly plan, let alone a yearly plan. So how do you de-risk that? Yeah, that's something that I also think about too. How do they even know if you're a startup that you're going to be around in a year to service the needs that they have?
I feel like to a degree, something like that comes down to customer experience. So customer service plus how we focus our messaging around what it is we do, how these funds work. Like, if someone gives us $1,000 a year, do we, turn that into a community building aspect where it's like they become more than just a customer, right? Now you are, we build a community around like 10,000 early adopters, so to speak, right? And does that become a special program where, the first 10,000 people to sign up for an annual subscription, whether that's personal or business subscription, are you now basically a lifetime member of the speaker? Like, from now till the end of time, you can use our system to transcribe media, right? And I think it allows us to think of innovative ways to bulk up that ARR, because clearly that's what investors care about, versus the MRR, because I guess the MRR is a bit too variable for their liking, while the ARR gives us a more solid idea of where our cash flow sits, at least for that year. And yeah, it would be interesting to reframe, our model, like I think is how we market, how we talk about our product around yearly plans, and maybe there's a way we make our yearly subscriptions more valuable. Maybe there's value adds we can put on there. You get to be part of the roadmap. You get to build out this product with us. Right, and things that enable us, once again, because now we'll have all this initial cash flow, it lets us almost build a more valid ecosystem for early adopters and users. Because yeah, it's tough, like you said, to put your money behind startups or put your money behind products that might not seem as battle tested as some of the bigger names. And you see that through review sites, right? More than likely, no one's looking past like review number 3, right? They look at the top 3 and they'll test those top 3 and then they're gone, right? They picked one of those. So how do you move beyond that to basically be like, take a chance on this, right? And we'll build something that'll blow your minds, essentially. And how do we message that properly?
And especially in a space that some people are used to paying per minute,
Exactly.
you know what I mean, on whenever they want, or the opposite of not per minute. It is the same per minute, but like democratize Rev, Happy Scribe, things like that, or at a bigger level, like Amazon speech to text, like these systems where you're literally getting billed by usage, and some of these numbers are very low. So there's also, it comes back to us having to differentiate and understand truly where we're providing value and offering solutions that are different outside of the systems that we're already seeing. And I think just, lastly for me, I just like one thing that I still struggle with, and we've talked about this lots here, is like even talking to investors, like to me, a lot of things seem obvious, I guess obviously obvious, which is like, someone who has a large media library and is trying to find gold in that media library, or analyze it or repurpose it in different ways. Like I can see how clear, our system today, or the system that we have hope to be, is relevant. But sometimes when I'm explaining that to people, like I've seen the look or the fear in someone's eyes when they've heard that one of our bigger customers works in digital therapeutics, and then another one is an events company that has a large media library of recordings versus a market research firm. You know what I mean? And I can see the fear, or like I can feel like the, you know, the non-comprehension. And I guess, you know, from an ideal is we can always continue to simplify the messaging to our customers, but then also simplify the messaging to our investors. And just, to me, ARR as a metric is sort of an undeniable one. You know what I mean? In a way, it's like, okay, great. I don't fully understand what you guys are doing, but if all these companies are willing to invest in you, even if they seem slightly different or in different industries or use cases, you've obviously figured something out, and something that I don't know. And that's valuable, because investors, one thing I've also understood is they want to learn. There's nothing better in a conversation when they walk away learning a new thing. And if we can present that even, then that's an exciting place to be in as a company. So I have lots more on the lessons that I've learned from talking to investors today. I don't have time for that. Otherwise, that was my monologue today. That was going to be, that can be left for another time. But I appreciate you guys spending me an hour on a beautiful Friday here after Canada Day. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we close this out?
Happy, I guess, weekend.
Yeah.
Enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah. Tim's having a great little holiday here tomorrow. I'm very excited for him. And again, I'm just very thankful. I'm thankful that you guys came and spent some time with me here for this. That means a lot.
Right.
Thank you, Lauren. Tim, you're good, buddy. Okay. All right. Everyone who watched this, tuned in, listened to it, read it, whatever medium this ends up on. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone, and hope you have a good rest of your day.